Okay, let me get the right screen here before we start. There it is. All right, so this is called a new start. Please follow along with your text and highlight as you need to. Each year, many people come to New York City. They come to visit museums, to study at famous colleges, to enjoy art and music. But from 1892 to 1954, millions of people came for a different reason. They came to start a new life in America. Ellis Island is a small island in the New York Harbor. It was set up as the country's main immigration station. For those 60 years, nearly every immigrant coming to America had to pass through Ellis Island. Most people came to America on a ship, and the journey was long and difficult. But once people arrived at Ellis Island, their journeys were not over. The immigrants had to pass inspections before they were allowed to enter America. The inspection started as soon as they started climbing the stairs to the room where the inspections were held. A doctor stood at the top of the stairs and watched people to see if they were showing any signs of trouble walking up the stairs. When it was time for a person's full medical examination, nicknamed the 6-second inspection, they were examined by a doctor to make sure they were healthy. Inspectors wrote chalk letters on people's lapels to show trouble. L for lameness if they couldn't walk well. E for eyesight if they couldn't see well. People who were marked were sent for more inspections, and if they were sick, they were sent to Ellis Island Hospital. They could be kept at the Ellis Island Hospital for weeks or even months. In many cases, people were sent back to their home countries. People had to pass both medical and legal inspections. During the legal inspection, immigration officers asked people questions to make sure they would be able to support themselves in America. Where were you born? Are you married? What is your occupation? Each immigrant was asked many questions. Many immigrants had to show they could pass a reading test. Immigrants could also be kept for not passing the legal inspection. They would have to live at Ellis Island for a few days or longer and wait for their case to be reviewed again. Sometimes one family member didn't pass one of the inspections and had to stay on Ellis Island. The rest of the family would often wait for them at Ellis Island, sometimes for months. So why did people put up with these struggles in order to live in America? Each immigrant's story was different, but there were a few main reasons that people thought the struggles were worth it. People came for a better life, for safety, for freedom. Many immigrants from countries like Ireland, Italy, and Greece came to America hoping for a better life. They were tired of barely having enough food to eat or clothes to wear. In many of these countries, people were told that in America the streets were paved with gold. Of course, the streets in America weren't really made of gold. What they meant was that in America there were jobs. America was a place where people could make a better life. Immigrants who came from country that is now called Turkey came to America in order to be safe. Some were in danger of being jailed or killed for speaking out against the government. Many Turkish people came so that they wouldn't be forced to join the military in Turkey. A third group of immigrants came for the freedom to practice their religions. Many of these were Jewish people coming from Russia. At that time in Russia, there were many laws that made life difficult for Jews. They were not allowed to practice their religion openly. It is estimated that over 3 million Jews came through Ellis Island looking for religious freedom in America. People came to Ellis Island for other reasons as well. As John F. Kennedy once said, there were probably as many reasons for coming to America as there were people who came. Today, Ellis Island is not an immigration station. It is a museum where visitors can read the stories of some of the millions of immigrants who came to Ellis Island hoping for a new start in America. That was text 1. Now, this is text 2. May 14th, 1892. Dear Thomas, I have seen a lot of water these last few days. I miss everybody. The trip was long and boring. One morning I woke up to the sound of people cheering on the deck. I ran up to see what was happening. In the distance I saw a tall figure in the water that looked like it was holding something in the air. My father had told me about the Statue of Liberty. I watched everyone around me. Some were crying, some were jumping up and down, and some were silent. We had finally made it. I had heard from the other passengers that we had to go through a place called Ellis Island before we could enter America. Ellis Island had tall red brick buildings that looked like both a castle and a prison. When we got there, was a lot of confusion. At the end of each aisle were a doctor and a guard. They were drawing letters on people's coats with chalk. When it was my family's turn, the doctor asked my parents questions about how they were feeling. They checked our hair, our ears, and our eyes. They listened to our hearts and asked us to take deep breaths. They did not draw on our coats like they did on many people. I was worried because I thought that was bad. I was so scared. Then father told me the letters stood for diseases they thought people had. If you had an eye disease, you could be sent home. If you were sick, they would keep you in Ellis Island Hospital. After we passed the medical test, we had to take one more test. My father had to answer questions the inspectors asked. They asked him his name, if he was married, what his skill was, if he had ever been in prison, what his job would be in America, how much money he had, and where we were going to live in America. The inspectors accepted his answers. We only had enough money for the next part of our journey to get our train tickets to Connecticut. I hope one day you will come to America. Now you know what to expect. I miss you very much. Sincerely, your American cousin, William Patrick O'Connor.